Following Caesar's victory at the Battle of Thapsus, the Roman Senate hastily voted a bevy of honors to Caesar, many even before the glorious general had returned to the city. Victorious over his enemies, and now sailing for Rome with legions at his back, the Senate likely decided that by initiating these honors, Caesar would not be in a position to take them for himself, thereby allowing the Senate the appearance of some continued say in Roman politics. Caesar's third dictatorship, which was due to expire around October of the 46 BC year, was once again renewed by the Senate, this time for a period of 10 years. This 10-year dictatorship was given to Caesar in conjunction with a 5-year term as consul. Caesar was also given the authority to declare war on behalf of Rome, and the jurisdiction to unilaterally offer pardons without senatorial approval. But Caesar had learned a harsh lesson during his long absences from Rome. His legates, lieutenants, and allies, those who had helped him win the civil war, did not necessarily share Caesar's vision for Rome's future. Whatever Caesar had envisioned for Rome's governmental balance, the dictator learned that politics in Rome had not paused simply because he was away, and that his own men had continued to pursue their individual agendas. Just like the Optimates elite had done following the death of the dictator Lucius Cornelius Sulla, Caesar's own Populares party elites had begun infighting as a means of getting ahead. First, Marcus Caelius Rufus, one of the men who had fought against the Senatus Consultum Ultimum which named Caesar an enemy of the state, turned against Caesar when Caelius was passed over in favor of Gaius Trebonius for the office of urban praetor. Calling for debt relief, which was the cry of the people, Marcus Caelius Rufus had attempted to whip up popular support from the power pool that was the city's plebs. Then, by using Titus Annius Milo, Caelius attempted to spread his uprising throughout Italy's provinces. Military intervention, however, had prevented Caelius and Milo from achieving their goals, and when both were killed, the uprising died down. Following his defeat of Pompeius Magnus at the Battle of Pharsalus, Caesar sent his legate, Marcus Antonius, to Rome, with instructions to manage government in his absence, as well as to push through some of Caesar's legislation. But Marcus Antonius only proved that he too was hedging his bets against the possibility that Caesar, who had gone silent for months during the siege of Alexandria, might not return to the city at all. Initially, Marcus Antonius, as a means of improving his own popularity with the people, was eager to join Publius Cornelius Dolabella in his calls for debt relief reform. And though we are told by one source that Antonius changed his mind because Gaius Asinius Pollio warned him that Caesar would not support such legislation, it is more likely that Antonius saw Dolabella as a rival for leadership. Despite the fact that Caesar had not employed the proscriptions used by his predecessor Sulla as a means of getting rid of his political opponents, most within the city still anticipated proscriptions and bloody retribution, once Caesar concluded the civil war and returned to Rome. These fears would have been compounded by the manner in which Marcus Antonius comported himself as Caesar's Magister Equitum. Not only did the master of the horse surround himself with an armed bodyguard while inside Rome's sacred Pomerium, but he wore arms and armor on his own person. Rather than government continuing to function in usual fashion, suddenly Marcus Antonius was the sole word on everything. And when Antonius commandeered for himself the Palatine villa belonging to the late Pompeius Magnus, many Romans saw a glimpse of what was to come upon the arrival of Caesar. For all his protestations against proscriptions and political murder, Caesar's dictatorship was starting to look like Sulla's. Publius Cornelius Dolabella was well aware of the situation, and Antony's role in the illusion. He was also attuned to the fact that since the death of Publius Clodius Pulcher, the people of the city had been without a patron. And Marcus Caelius Rufus had failed to help the people, making the mistake of turning to Titus Annius Milo instead of appealing to the clientele of the late Publius Clodius Pulcher. The person having the most influence over the city's clientele was the very person who had immediately politicized the death of Publius Clodius. His widow, Fulvia, had selfishly held the interests of the people in trust, waiting until Clodius's young son would reach the age to take up his father's cause. Now, following the death of her second husband, Gaius Scribonius Curio, at the Battle of Bagrada's River, Fulvia was once again unattached, and available for marriage. Following in the footsteps of Publius Clodius, Dolabella exchanged his patrician status for that of plebeian, ran for and won election as tribune of the plebs, and began calling for debt relief legislation. As a means of identifying himself with the Clodian reforms, Dolabella erected a statue to Publius Clodius Pulcher, then soon after began talking of divorcing his wife, Tullia. Divorcing Tullia would accomplish two things for Dolabella. Suddenly, in the wake of Antony's tactless behavior, the names of Lucius Sergius Catilina and Publius Clodius Pulcher had become sources of great political power with the people. Tullia's father, Marcus Tullius Cicero, was the very man persecuted by Publius Clodius for his role in executing Catilina's conspirators without a trial in 63 BC. By divorcing Tullia, Dolabella could distance himself from Cicero, whose public currency was declining. The second obvious advantage in divorcing Tullia was the freedom to marry Fulvia, and complete his ascension as patron to Publius Clodius's clientele. But Marcus Antonius had the same idea, and the benefit of a long history with Fulvia. So Antonius quickly divorced his wife, Antonia Hybrida. Antonia was the daughter of Antonius Hybrida, the man who had defeated the armies of Lucius Sergius Catilina outside Rome. To disassociate himself from his uncle's political decline, Marcus Antonius accused Antonia Hybrida of adultery, naming Publius Cornelius Dolabella as her lover, thus prompting Cicero's pregnant daughter to divorce Dolabella. Now, not only could Marcus Antonius be rid of a wife whose political value had plummeted, but he was allowed to keep a third of her dowry to further fund his political career. Whether or not Antonia Hybrida was guilty of adultery with Dolabella is unknown. Dolabella was a known rake, engaging in multiple affairs while married to Cicero's daughter, and Antonia Hybrida, like many women, was married to a man who was primarily absent from Rome in pursuit of his political and military career. But considering Marcus Antonius was Rome's acting dictator during Caesar's absence, it's unlikely Antonia Hybrida would have been granted a fair trial. Following his divorce from Antonia, Marcus Antonius married the twice-widowed Fulvia, becoming stepfather to her eponymously named son by Publius Clodius, and a daughter named Claudia Pulchra, as well as the eponymously named son Fulvia gave Curio. Allied with Fulvia, Marcus Antonius now had power that was separate from that given him by Caesar. At some point during Caesar's third consular term in 46 BC, Caesar attempted to withdraw from the office, requesting the Senate transfer his consulship to Publius Cornelius Dolabella. Marcus Antonius, however, objected, pointing out that it was Dolabella who had been behind the rash of gang violence in the city. Shamed, Caesar was forced to withdraw his request. But Caesar could see Dolabella's popularity with the people, and he still meant to maintain a good relationship with him. Using his prerogative as dictator, Caesar simply appointed Dolabella to the consulship. But Marcus Antonius, in his capacity as an augur, proclaimed the omens unfavorable, and once again, Caesar was forced to back down. However, Antonius could not prevent Caesar from using his dictatorial prerogatives to issue a full pardon to Publius Cornelius Dolabella for his role in instigating the gang violence. Marcus Antonius's ability to make Rome's dictator back down on two occasions points to the growing power of the Antonii during Caesar's absence from Rome. Marcus had two brothers, Gaius and Lucius Antonius, who each held military commands, and all were the sons of Caesar's third cousin Julia, a woman described by Plutarch as one of the most nobly born and admirable women of her time. The fact that Marcus Antonius had dared to march across the Pomerium with armed legions, and cut down the urban plebs who were occupying the Forum Romanum in protest, also demonstrated to Caesar that Antonius had some support from the legions, and could not simply be punished to the fullest extent of the law with exile or loss of citizenship. Instead, Caesar had to be satisfied with legally removing Antonius from office, and naming as his master of the horse, Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. But Caesar knew that despite his being demoted to only a private citizen, Marcus Antonius was not likely to just disappear. Having married Fulvia, Caesar's former legate now had the use of his new wife's full dowry, which meant the control of Publius Clodius's massive city clientele and collegia gangs. With so much power now at his disposal, it behooved Caesar to keep watch over Marcus Antonius.